that there would be a lot of, um, you know, a lot of a return of lands to indigenous people and a lot more equality, a lot more help to indigenous peoples. That didn't happen. Um, and then, as it stood, many of the few elders that are still around from the current tribes, in our time, they're not called Native Americans. The tribes refuse to call themselves that because they feel that that would be what white men called them. So the tribes call themselves by their tribal name. If you're Lakota, you say, I am a Lakota bee. I'm a Lakota. No one says Native American anymore. But there's some sad things that are still going on there in terms of the desecration of the tribes and the very few amount of Native Americans, as you would call them, that we have left. So some of the non-state supportive tribes have gotten together, so there's a lot more intermingling, with indigenous peoples and native tribes, particularly in America. And they're creating certain foundations that give them a lot more of their rights back and remind them of their sovereign rights, both legally and spiritually. And deeper connection with the land is something that they're still working on. It's not perfect. I had hoped to see more progress, um, and I just didn't. I didn't see that.
Okay.
I did see some progress and change in terms of voting systems. You have right now, this bipartisan system, and this, is typically in your in this country, Democrat or Republican, and there's a completely different voting system now, and there are two other parties that are, um, brought to the system, two other parties, not just Democrat or Republican anymore. So now you'll have a Democrat or Republican and these two other parties. So, and they're not current parties that you already know. These two parties were independently started by just regular local people who wanted a party that, provided liberation for every single person and freedom and sovereignty for every single person. So that is a change that you can be excited about. Um, if things happen in the presidency, in the United States in particular, in my time, for example, I've gone through, a, a death of a president, and there was an immediate replacement when that one stepped through. It didn't just go into the vice president like it would in your time. And that's just
Uh-huh.
not how it happens here in the States. In my time, you have to re-vote on who gets in. It doesn't just go down to the vice president. So you re-voted, and we got in another person. That person got impeached for wrongdoing because, out of all the things that you're going through now, the positive changes that if anyone in a higher level of government makes terrible decisions, they are impeached or let go of immediately. There's no, um, there's not a lot of, you know, uh, years of court dates and evidence gathering and subpoenas and all of the things that happen. It's just that you're not doing this right. Goodbye. And that's a huge change in having the capacity to do that. So, again, one president died. There was another voting. You took your time. You got another president. You voted in the wrong person, and that person got impeached within 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of our, economists and people who study, how systems go in our world are starting to predict that perhaps we will not have presidents and prime ministers in the world, even in 10 years from now. Some people are saying.
Wow. That's very interesting. Thank you for that answer. I have a question here. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm still going to call it out. Was the Nasara bill introduced? I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
Oh my goodness. I can't even believe people are still asking that, because that bill was completely misunderstood. It was for what you think that it was supposed to do. It was never actually meant for that. It was something completely much more minor than that. And it was never signed, never passed, and it never will be. It was never a real bill, but just a deep misunderstanding by some conspiracy theorists who want someone to save them. So I'm really sorry, but it doesn't exist. Therefore, it never was implemented.
Perfect. Thank you very much for
A big
answering
misunderstanding.
that. I have another question. What kind of transportation do you use in 2040?
Well, we don't use a lot of cars. A lot of people
Okay.
bike. There have been under development some electric cars that are similar to bikes, except they have heating systems that have some sort of the best way I could call it is a crystalline core that heats things. So it's a plasma core engine,
Wow.
complete plasma core engine. So I know that shocks you, but it's not exactly a car. It's lighter, it's slower. Um, there were so many accidents between your time and now, particularly with drunk drivers, that if you get a DUI now, you go straight to prison on one. No drinking and driving at all. You have one chance in the United States, and that's it. And if you blow it, you blow it. So, on top of that, with a lot of the prisons filled up with people who refuse to stop drinking, we decided to make a lighter car that it will only go a certain, I don't think it goes above 55 miles per hour.
Wow.
Yeah, so everything is rather slow moving with cars. And we're not at this place where I know you're expecting perhaps hover cars, but it's not there yet. But it's deep. There are some people that are testing them and doing well with the testing. So we suspect, our scientists suspect that it should be out in less than 10 years.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, but not there yet. We have these kind of slow cars now that are nice and sleek, and um, it's interesting.
That's really cool. Thank you for that answer.
I remember the big boats that my family would drive around, these big like Suburbans. No one has those anymore.
They're all gone.
Yeah. No
That's
one,
really cool, and it's really cool that there's very little tolerance for drunk drivers.
yeah.
So that's really good.
You get no chance on
Yeah.
that. And there's some other things like insofar as law that if you rape someone and you absolutely evidence it and it is absolutely evidence 100%, that's prison for life. You do not get out. No chances, no getting out on good behavior. There's certain things like that going on.
That's good.
Yeah.
Um, Tabitha has just put in an extra question on top of that, just asking, is there any self-driven cars?
Yes. Yes, there are. I'm still not comfortable. Maybe I'm just old school, but I think like my mom and dad would just have a cow, like, you know, with something like that. They would never get into it. And, my brother actually drives one because he's an engineer and he was in the process of helping create them. So he like, well, he doesn't drive them, but he sits and drives. And I think it's bizarre. But they just came into about 2 years ago. People started being able to get them on the public market. And but they've had some crashes and they're not perfect. And just like Tesla is not perfect, this is definitely the same thing. It is a Tesla vehicle, but it's affordable for everyone. And it's a branch off from Tesla with a whole new name. And it's twice as twice as, what do you call it? It's half of the cost.
Wow. Wow. That's very interesting.
It's safer than the original Teslas, but half the cost.
Wow.
But still not completely. It's just weird. I don't like it yet.
Thank you for answering that question.